So first of all, before getting into the object-oriented programming, let's try to cover our functions, and then once we're done with the function, then we can start object-oriented programming. So let's say all right. Before we move into the object-oriented programming, let's do something with functions. So functions are very integral part of programming, and then they will be heavily used in your again object-oriented programming. So without having a knowledge of functions, it might be very difficult for you even to work with object-oriented programming. So what I can do basically is I can move a bit faster for teaching you functions, and then we can start object-oriented programming. So let me begin with what is function. So functions are actually, you understand what is function, you might have studied in your previous programming sessions. So functions are basically the block of statements. So function is basically the block of a statement that aims to obtain some output. Let's say the functions are basically the block of some similar statement that aims to obtain some output. So this is basically a function, and there are different types of functions. So there are different types of functions, but basically we focused on 4 types of functions. Different types of functions, but basically we will focus on 4 types of functions. So those 4 types of functions are you have one as a function with no parameter that does not return a value, function that does not return a value, and no argument, and then you have a function that returns a value and no argument. Then you have function that does not return a value as an argument. A function that returns a value as an argument. These are the category of the functions as I would be teaching you for this semester. So these are the 4 different functions that we'll have a discussion on about. So you have a function that does not return a value and has no argument. You have a function that returns a value and no argument. You have a function that does not return a value and has an argument, and you have a function that does not return a value and has an argument, and you have a function that returns a value and has an argument. Okay, so function that returns a value with an argument, function that returns a value and having an argument. So let us see one by one in more detail. So let us see this first function. So let us say function that does not return a value and no argument. So these types of functions, so you have for these types of functions, what you can have is let's say you can have, for example, public. Let's say if it is not public, so you can have if a function does not return a value, so they have a return type of void. So they have a return type of void. Function does not return a value, then they have a return type of void, and you have a name of the function. You have open bracket, close bracket, and you have a curly braces, which is the body of the function. Basically, the function has 2 parts. In fact, let me just cover this before. Function has 2 parts. Function has 2 sections, 2 parts to be done. One is a function definition, another is a function call. So function definition, what this will do is this will define what the function is supposed to do. This will tell, this is focused on what the function is supposed to do. And function call means you are calling the function, that means calling the function for its execution. So you are calling the function for its, excuse me everyone. You are calling the function for its execution. So you have two things that you need to do. You have a function definition, you have a function call. For example, if you are doing void name of the function and you are doing something inside this function, this is a function call. And this function has to be called in the void main. This has to be called in the void main. Under this main, you will be calling this function. So if you are just calling this function here, so while calling the function, you need to pass it by a function name here. So let us say this one. You have a semicolon here. So this is a function call. So function call means now we are calling this at this point so that the execution will start. Execution from this function will take at this point of time. But if you are not calling the function, this function is never being called and this function will never get executed. So let us see some examples of the function that has no parameter and that does not return a value. And then we'll go to the next function. So we'll try to cover up with all these functions today. So let us see the example. For example, let's get started into Visual Studio. And let me start with Visual Studio 2012 itself. So this time I'm avoiding a one stop here everyone. I'll be just using a static function. So, and you may ask me later on why am I using this as static, so you'll have to skip for now. We'll have to say I'm just working with the functions. Let me save it into sublocations. Let me save it into the linter batch and then continue. Okay. All right, now everybody. So this time now I'll be skipping some part for now, and then I will be discussing that part later on. Okay, let us say now. Okay, so let me create a function here, everybody. Let us create a function. So what function I want to create is, let's say I want to create a function. Excuse me everybody, I just need to receive a call. Okay everybody, so I'm sorry for the interruptions everyone. So let me just create a function, just a public void, and let's say I just want to create any function, whatever you want to do. Let's say I want to create a function to print name. And what this function will do, let's say this will ask for your name and then just prints your name. Okay, let us say, okay, so this is going to ask me, okay, console.write, enter your first name. Let's say for example, I just want to build a very easy function. Enter your first name. Say this one, and again let me create a variable. It is a first name equals to, let's say, console.read line. And let's say I have added to another function console.write. and I can say your last name.
सर स्क्रिन अड्किरहेको छ हजुरको
अड्किरहेछ. So just give me 1 second. I'll connect it to the data. एकछिन ल. Okay, let me connect it to data. कहिलेकाहीँ इन्टरनेट यार के गर्ने. Let me. Okay, I have connected to a different network. If a problem exists, and then let's stream last name is also equal to console. अहिले ठिक छ. स्क्रिन अड्किएको छ. Is it okay?
झन् अड्किरहेको छ
अड्किरहेको छ है. Okay. So let me just do one thing. Let me connect you data. Let me just. Just give me two. Okay. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll just come back. No, 2 minutes. में इसको data cable ले रहा. I'll just. Let me just connect my data. Okay, so let's see if the problem still exists. So I've connected my data now. I think this should be good now. Okay, now let's proceed further. अब मैले के गरेँ भन्दाखेरि एउटा फंक्शन बनाएँ print name which is of return type void. Void भनेको this means void means nothing, and that means this is going to return nothing. Okay, so void means nothing, and this is going to return nothing. So let's say त्यसपछि I just created some statements to enter first name, to store inside first name variable, enter second name, store inside the enter your last name. Okay now? ठिक छ?
ठिक छ
Okay. Okay, so I did something, and what I want to do is
फेरि त्यस्तै हो सर।
अझ त्यसो रहा
खै त सर खै आउँदैन त लेखेको नि पुरै अड्के है
यो देखिएन यो एकछिन म फेरि सेयरिङ गर्छु ल मेरो आवाज सुने हा Are you
Yes,
able to
sir.
hear my voice? Okay, so let me just disconnect
Yes,
and
sir.
let me connect this again and let me share this again. Now, are you able to see my screen? Screen visible छ?
छ सर।
यो लेखेको देखिया छ है?
Yes, sir.
अहिले लेखेको देखिन्छ सर, हजुरले टाइप गरेको कति बेर पछि देखिन्छ क्या एकैचोटि
ल
टाइप
ठिक छ बरु म बिस्तारै अब टाइप गरेको कुरा पछि देखियो भने पनि म एक्सप्लेन गरिदिन्छु है मैले के गरेँ भन्दाखेरि आई जस्ट क्रिएटेड अ फंक्शन ओके जसको नाम चाहिँ इट्स प्रिन्ट नेम एन्ड दिस फंक्शन इज नट गोइङ टु रिटर्न अ भ्याल्यु द्याट्स वाइ दिस इज void र यो पब्लिक चाहिँ आई डोन्ट निड नाउ ओके यो पब्लिक प्राइवेट चाहिँ आई टक अबाउट यु व्हेन आई टिच यु क्लासेस एन्ड अब्जेक्ट तर टुडे व्हाट आई विल डिस्कस इज आई सिम्पली क्यानट एक्सेस दिस प्रिन्ट नेम डिरेक्टली बिकज दिस इज इनसाइड दिस क्लासिकल प्रोग्राम यो क्लास प्रोग्राम अहिले बुझ्दैनौँ हामीले जबसम्म हामी अब्जेक्ट ओरिएन्टेड प्रोग्रामिङ पढ्दैनौँ तबसम्म हामी क्लास वर्ड बुझ्दैनौँ त्यसको लागि चाहिँ म एउटा कीवर्ड युज गर्छु यहाँ स्ट्याटिक I'll explain you about this static keyword once I start teaching you object-oriented programming, everyone. मैले एउटा static keyword हालेँ यहाँ र यो static keyword को काम के हो I will be explaining you later on है अहिले तत्काल के बुझौँ भन्दाखेरि we have created a function which is of return type void and the name of the function is print name र function को काम के त this is going to read your first name, this is going to read your last name, this is going to calculate the full name and this is going to print welcome whatever is your full name. So this is going to do all this work. Okay. अब यसमा हुन्छ के त भन्दाखेरि यदि मैले यहाँ console.readline पनि राखे तापनि even if I do whatever, although this is my function definition, I have defined a function, I have created a function, but if I run this function will not get executed. Nothing will happen here. This function will not get executed at any cost. Again, if I call this console.readline here, so function execution won't take place here. Okay, so function won't be executed. You see there is no output. Can you see my screen console window? Blank output.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so no output is there. You cannot see any output. Oh, I only defined a function, but I have not called the function. So I need to call the function. So how to call the function? I can simply go here and I can call print name. Yeah, and I am calling the function. So once I'm calling the function, if I run it now, what I will get? I will get, and now the function will get executed. So let's say this is Subhas and Gaire, and this gives me Subhas Gaire. All right. So this is how the function will work, everybody. So this is just an example of a function that has no parameter. You can see there is no parameter in the argument inside, and you can see this is not going to return any value. Okay, now let us try to see the function that returns a value and that has no parameter, right? A very simple example you will see. So let's see one more example. Now let me see the example of function that has no parameter, that returns a value and has no parameter. So let us try to understand this. अब यसको syntax के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि you could be having data type for this data type, or you can data type unit. We also call it return type, data type or return type. So why this is return type, I'll tell you later, because this may be returning something else. So this could be data type, this could be return type, and function name. And this is going to mandatorily return that. This is going to return something. This has to return something, and this function acts as a variable. The function returning a value, you have to note it down. The function that returns a value acts as a variable holding the value for which it returns. जस्तो कि यो function यदि 3 return गर्यो भने the value of this function will be 3. If this function returns 5, this value of this function will be 5. So this function will act as a variable, and what will be the value of the variable? The value of the variable will be whatever the value it returns will be the value of this function. So now let me give you one example. Let me give you an example for the function that returns a value. So here only I will continue. I will continue here itself. जस्तै कि मैले static void print name भन्ने function गरेँ हैन. Let me create another function static. Now this time I'm not going to use a void. I'm going to use a string because I am suppose let's say I want to return the string variable. Okay, I just want to go print full name. And what this will do in this case now let us say this is going to do exactly the same. Let's say this is going to do this all work here. ये सेम काम यसले चाहिँ के गर्यो भन्दाखेरि this read your first name, this read your last name, and this calculated your full name. But since you are getting an error here, what is the error? The error is, you can see, error is okay. Just the error is a function, whatever name of the program, that function name, not all code returns a not all code path returns a value. Now this function is supposed to return a value, but this has not returned any value. So why is it happening now? Why am I getting the error? I am getting the error because the data type of this function is a string type, but this function is not returning any value, so that I am getting an error. Okay, so this is supposed to return a value of type string. So let's say how. So this has to return full name. You can see full name is a string variable that is holding the first name plus last name. Okay, so now if I have to call this function, so what will happen is not to happen here. For example, let me just go over here and let me just call this print full name. So what this will do is, in this case, this will print this statement, this will print this statement, this will store the first name, this will print this statement, this will store here, this will calculate the full name, this will return a value, but you are not printing this value anywhere. Oh, you are not printing this value anywhere. So let me remove this function for now, and let me just go here and let me just call the second function. Let me just put the second function. So let me run it now, and if you see, nothing will happen. This will ask you first name, this will ask you second name, but what? Nothing is there because this function returns a value, but you have not printed or you have not made any sorts of manipulations here. So what I can do is I can either store this inside another variable, or I can directly print this function value. So let's say I just want to print it. For example, what I can do is I can just do console.writeLine. Pattern, I can print this function here. I can print this function like this. Okay, because this function is now acting as a variable. Now what is this value of this variable? The value of this variable is a full name. So what is full name? Full name is equal to first name plus last name. So this is going to print the full name, everyone. So this is going to print the full name. So let me run and show you now again. So let's say Binod, and let's say Shah, and then this is going to print full name here. Let's see now. So this is going to return the value which it returns, and you can also make a concatenation here. For example, welcome, I could put welcome zeroth position, and then I could put comma. So now this is going to print welcome whatever is the full name. Okay, there is an issue, so I need a comma here. Okay, so this is going to print welcome, and whatever is the full name is going to be printed out here. So let me run it again and show you. So this becomes, let's say, Subhas Samser. This prints welcome Subhas Samser. So this is going to return a value. This is going to return a value. At the same time, you could also store this inside some other variable. For example, you could also make fn equals to string fn equals to print full name, and you could use this. You could manipulate on this variable. you could use this variable. So let us run this again, and you can see, let's say this is from the first function. Let's say Subhas, and this prints from the first function. Now again, this is for the second time you have calling this one. Let's say Chandras and Sekhar. So this is going to print full name Chandrasekhar from the second function. So see. So this function will return a value, and you can use this function anywhere you want. Okay. So if you have a question anywhere, anyone, so please let me know your question, anyone. If you have a question with this function that returns a value, so please let me know. Nobody has a question?
होइन सर सर
Yes.
हामी अलिक ओपीमा चाहिँ बढी फोकस गरेर नि फङ्सनहरू पहिला नि पढ्यो नि
ठिक छ त्यस कारण I am moving a bit fast, so that I'll complete it today, and tomorrow we can start OOP. Okay. I am planning to finish your programming your function. आज हामी finish गरिदिन्छौँ र भोलिदेखि फेरि हामी OOP मा जम्प गर्छौँ. There are few things that you have to learn. Okay, there are very few things that you have to learn. अहिले त्यो simple छ, सजिलो लाग्छ हैन, but let me come back to the function that returns a value, and then you will see. There are some concepts that you must have to know. Okay. यसलाई चाहिँ हामी चाँडै भ्याउँछ, आजै भ्याइदिउँ, अनि from tomorrow you can start OOP. Okay.
त्यो सर
Okay. So now let's say I think you already have this idea, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Now let me go to the next function, that is function that has a parameter. Now the function that doesn't return a value but that has an argument. Okay, so let me again create a new, so for the function that has an argument, function that has an argument. So what happens is you could be having data type. Okay, not data type. You could be having a void, and then function, and having argument two or argument three, whatever. And this is passed as a implementation. So let me see what I'm trying to do over here. So I'll just give you one example, and then things will be more clear here. So let me get again into a programming session, and let me start a new one for this. Let me start console again. So function with parameterize. This is important, very important. Let us see the function. Okay, so let me see the function that has a parameter. So let me see, I created a function public void. Okay, not the public, actually I just need a static void, and then I could be having something like, let's say, function called add, and I could be passing some parameter, integer x and integer y. Okay, I'm passing this as an argument, and what I can do this function is I can create another variable, integer sum equals to x plus y. This can print the sum of this number. Console.print. That's a sum. This is going to print the sum. Hey, 1 second. I just need to make one small call, so I'll get back to you again. Sorry, everybody. It was very important call. So again, let me get started now, everyone. So let us say that I created a function that has some parameters, and I'm calculating the sum, and I'm just printed the sum. Now, this had some parameters x and y, and this could, and I could be having another function. Let's say static void. Let's say full name, where I could be passing string first name and a string last name. And this could do something like string n equals to first name plus last name, and I could print this. Welcome. Okay, so let us say now this is what I did now. So let's say now if you are
और
going, yeah, is it a problem? Okay, now let's say if you are going to call this function, let's say add, and now this will expect two parameter x and y, and if I can pass two parameter, so this is now going to calculate me the sum of this x and y and print the sum of this x and y. Similarly, I can also call this full name function here, and I can simply pass the first name and the last name as a parameter. Let's say ram and ram, let's say sister. So this is how you pass. This is called an argument. The integer x and y, they are arguments, and these are called the parameter to these functions. Okay, so you pass as an argument and you pass as a parameter. So actually the signature has to match. So what does the meaning of signature means? Now if it is a data type of, if it is a data type of integer, you must pass an integer value. If a data type of the variable, a argument is a string, this must be a string value. So signature must match here. If you run it now, you'll see that this really works here. So something like this. So the sum of the number is 1300 because it's past 500 plus 800, and the sum was calculated, and this will return the sum. Sorry, this printed the sum. Similarly, ram and swester was passed as an argument, sorry, parameter to the function, and this printed ram swester. Okay. So now let me do something more meaningful here, everyone. Let me do something more meaningful here. For example, let's say what I can do over here is, let me just start a new one. Let me just create a new one, and let me just say parameterized function, example more. Okay, let me just make it 150%. Now let's see some more real example of why do you need a parameterized function. Let's have a function, the static void, and then I have a function called sum calculator, and here I am passing as, let's say integer as an, okay, integer x as an array. Alright, so I passed x as an array, and what this has to do, this has to calculate, I made a mistake here, array is an, I just passed some array element here, and what I really want to do in this case is I simply want to find the sum of all these array elements here. For example, what I want to do here is I want to find the sum of all these array elements. So what I can do, I can just use for integer I equals to 0, I is less than x dot length, and I plus plus, and I want to find the sum of all these array elements. Let me create a variable called integer sum equals to 0. Okay, so for integer sum equals to 0, and here, okay, I just want to sum plus equals to, I just can do xi. So this is going to calculate the sum of all these array elements, and here I can just do console dot right line the sum of the array elements this gives me sum. Okay, what I'm trying to do over here is now I just
सर
printed
देखिरहेको छैन
देखिएन
छैन नि सर देखेको
ओके एकछिन म फेरि अफ गरेर अन गर्छु है यसलाई लेट मी जस्ट अनसेयर दिस and let me share this again. Now is it visible? अब देखिया छ
अहिले भिजिबल हुन्छ अहिले लेख्दा लेख्दै फेरि
ए ल ल ल ठिक छ म बिस्तारै गर्छु त्यसरी यो ठिक छ अब यो देख्नु भएको छ इज इट ओके नाउ
देखिरहेको छ यो त
ओके यसमा मैले के गरेँ भन्दाखेरि एउटा फङ्सन बनाएँ सम क्याल्कुलेटर भन्ने अनि त्यसको टाइप चाहिँ भोइड र त्यसमा मैले एउटा एरे पास गरेँ इन्टिजर अनि एक्स भनेर मैले एउटा एरे पास गरेँ हो कि यसमा के एलिमेन्ट छ मलाई थाहा छैन आई एम सिम्पली पासिङ दिस इज एन आर्गुमेन्ट यो एलिमेन्टहरू कहाँबाट आउँछ दिस विल कम फ्रम समवेयर एल्स भनेको त्यो अर्को प्रोग्रामबाट पनि आउन सक्छ त्यो युजरको फ्रन्ट एन्डबाट पनि आउन सक्छ अथवा जेसन डाटाबाट पनि आउन सक्छ मोबाइलबाट पनि आउन सक्छ जहाँबाट पनि आउन सक्छ डाटा है डाटा जहाँबाट आए पनि मैले के गर्नु पर्यो भन्दाखेरि द अब्जेक्टिभ अफ दिस फङ्सन इज टु क्याल्कुलेट द सम अफ अल दोज एरे एलिमेन्ट्स फर इक्जाम्पल ओके त्यसको लागि मैले एउटा भेरी एउटा सानो लजिक लेखेँ I just created a variable called sum which is initialized to 0 and I used a for loop to iterate through each and every element of this array. What I did is I calculated the sum of all these array elements. Okay, so this is the logic to calculate sum of all those array elements and I printed these array elements. Now in the main function I will be passing some array. So let's say my array create kare जस्तो कि integer array equals to एउटा के एरे लिएँ मैले जस्तो कि मैले लिएँ 100 200 300 500 600 800 900 एउटा एरे लिएँ ओके त्यसै गरी म एउटा अर्को पनि एरे लिन्छु integer second equals to let's I just passed 3 4 5 6 99 76 87 98 त्यसरी मैले के एरे लिएँ त्यसै गरी लेट मी मोर एरे integer third भनौं equals to let's say this is something like 1200 100 234 let's say 7890 7654 let's say 6789 4321 is it visible everybody so देख्नुभयो whatever the array I have typed
देखिरहेको छ
अब के भयो भन्दाखेरि मैले तीनटा एरे क्रिएट गरेँ है अब यदि मैले फंक्सनमा बनाएको भए मैले यो यसको लागि पनि लजिक लेख्नु पर्थ्यो यसको लागि पनि लजिक लेख्नु पर्थ्यो यसको लागि पनि लजिक लेख्नु पर्थ्यो हैन but since I have created a function what I can do is I can pass this array inside this function and I can calculate the sum जस्तो कि what I can do here in this case is अब मैले sum calculator simply first pass गर्दै भने now this is going to calculate all the array elements of this first array त्यसै गरी यदि मैले sum calculator बाट यदि मैले second pass गरे भने which is an array now this is going to calculate sum of all these array elements okay similarly मैले sum calculator गरेर third pass गरे भने this is going to calculate the sum of all those array elements of the third array okay so simply by doing this can calculate the sum of any array elements any array elements यदि मैले युजरबाट रिड गरेको पनि भए पनि if I would have passed it here so this would be able to calculate sum of all those array elements so this is where the you might have heard about pass by value and the pass by reference हैन so this is actually pass by reference अघिल्लो समय हामीले pass by value गरेका थियौं this is pass by reference why this is pass by reference because we are actually iterating through the array elements so this is also pass by reference a pass by value and a pass by reference is a very huge term so let me again run this and show you now so this is going to find the first sum of the array of the first array, sum of the elements of the second array, sum of the elements of the third array. So let me run and so just make me one thing clear. Let me write one thing here, console dot write line. Sum of elements of first array
माइक म्युट भयो जस्तो सरको
ओके माइक होइन मलाई बोलेकै छैन
सर
भन्नु
मेरो यो अर्को प्रोग्रामिङ ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा गर्दाखेरि स्ट्याटिक मेथड डिक्लेयर गरेर गर्दाखेरि यो स्ट्याटिक मेथड अब्जेक्ट इज नट कलेबल भन्छ के भएको यो
हजुर भन्नुहोस् त
स्ट्याटिक मैले अर्को ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा गरेको होइन यही सेम प्रोसेसलाई यसमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भने स्ट्याटिक मेथड अब्जेक्ट इज नट कलेबल भन्छ कि यो
स्ट्याटिक लेखेर कल गर्यो कुन ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा गर्नुभयो
मैले पाइथनमा गरेको
पाइथनमा गर्नुभयो अनि पाइथनमा के भयो
यो स्ट्याटिक मेथड इज नट कलेबल भन्छ क्या मैले यो डेकोरेटर माथि लगाएर यो फङ्सन डिफिनेसनमा तल कल गर्दाखेरि त्यस्तो हुन्छ
त्यो पाइथनको मलाई कोड देखाउनुहोस् हैन म हेर्दिन्छु ल त्यो पाइथन त झन् सजिलो छ पाइथन त झन् त्यसमा केही टेन्सनै हुँदैन त्यसमा त झन् तपाईँको यस्तो त्यो हुनसक्छ इन्डेक्सिङहरू नमिलेको चाहिँ हुनसक्छ
त्यो इन्डेक्सिङ त नमिलेको त छैन तर एरे पास गर्दाखेरि माथि के गर्नु
ठिक छ त मलाई देखाइदिनु म हेर्दिन्छु है तर पाइथनमा एरे
लिस्ट हुन्छ
एरे त हुन्छ के नम्पाई युज गर्नुभयो त्यसमा डाटा टाइप पनि 4 किसिमको हुन्छ टपल डिक्सनरी लिस्ट ठीक छ एरे लिस्ट डिफरेन्ट टाइप्स अफ डाटा टाइप हुन्छ त्यसमा त्यसको डाटा टाइप इज भेरी युनिक एनीवे त्यो मलाई कोड देखाउनु म हेर्दिन्छु है ग्रुपमा उता मेसेजमा पठाइदिनु म हेर्दिन्छु एनीवे लेट्स से दिस है अब लेट मी से दिस वान म धेरै कुरा चाहिँ गर्दिनँ यसमा आई जस्ट डोन्ट वान्ट टु स्पेन्ड अ लट अफ टाइम हैन बिकज यो कुराहरू पढिसकेको कुरा भएको हुनाले म जस्ट रिभाइज मात्र गरेको यसलाई अब भोलिदेखि हामी चाहिँ वी निड टु डु अब्जेक्ट ओरिएन्टेड प्रोग्रामिङ द्याट इज द मेन पोइन्ट ओरिएन्टेड प्रोग्रामिङमा चाहिँ हाम्रो बढी फोकस हुन्छ र त्यसपछि डिजाइन प्याटर्न सो सी फर्स्ट एल्बम सम द एरे अफ द फर्स्ट एरे second array the third array ko sum it could find it out okay so this is where the function with the parameterized function will be very in use ekdam काम लाग्छ यो केसमा चाहिँ अब चाहिँ let us see the last one everyone last one हेरौँ लास्टमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि function that has a parameter and that returns a value so let us make it very simple अब यो चाहिँ त्यति गाह्रो छैन यति कुरा बुझ्यो भने त्यो पनि केही सिम्पल गाह्रो हुँदैन यसमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि सिम्पली इन्स्टेड अफ void what you do you simply pass integer तर इन्टिजर पास गर्ने बित्तिकै के हुन्छ त यहाँ now this is supposed to return a value so what is it returning this is returning integer so यो मैले लेख्न पाइन अब I need to write return sum this has to return a value. Here you return sum gonna be taken now. I cannot. I need to. Okay, yeah, इसको value also. This then it will work everywhere. Now this is how it will work. The function मैले call करें. Now this will take and return this sum. Actually, this is not printed anywhere. So let me just print this. मैले हटाइदिएँ नि होला यिनीलाई मैले हटाइदिएँ अब this is going to be printed here let's say 0 no I can simply pass sum calculator and I need to pass first as an element so this is going to return this one this sound calculator. This is also, I'm going to remove this. And this is the very difference between your function that has a parameter, sorry, the function that returns a value and function that does not return a value. Kehi farak chaina, but only the way you execute them, only the way you call them is different. Now this will be acting as a variable. This will be acting as a variable, and you can use it any way you want. यदि मैले run गरे भने you will see now the sum of the first array elements is this, the sum of the second array elements is this, and sum of the third array elements is this. Okay. Array element add you can add a top up there, and then you can find the sum of all those array elements. So this is how it works, everyone. This is how the function really works, and this is how we have finished all those 4 functions. So हाम्रो भइरहेको 4वटै फंक्शन्सको चाहिँ हामीले डिस्कसन गरेर यहाँ आज we just finished it all. And so now the next topic is our object oriented programming. So next topic that we'll be starting will be the object oriented programming. The object oriented programming bitra, let me see what I'm going to cover. First of all, so before I move into this one, object oriented programming,
सर के देखा छैन स्क्रिन
Okay. ठीक छ म अहिले उ गरौँला. So before I move into your program त देखायो होला नि हैन
खै अड्केको छ पुरै
एकछिन ल your program, is it visible program?
Yes, sir.
Your program to visible. अब सबसे पहिले before I enter into the next topic, can you let me, do you have any question, anyone? कसैलाई केही क्वेशन छ यतिमा फंक्शनमा? Any doubt, anybody?
छैन सर
कसैलाई केही doubt छैन है? Doubt छैन भने now let us go into a new topic called object oriented programming. त्यसमा हामी के कुरा गर्छौं त्यसको ब्रिफ आइडिया डिस्कस गरौँ अनि भोलिदेखि हामी चाहिँ will start OOP, okay? We'll start OOP from tomorrow, everyone. So let me just share my screen and let me just show you. Okay, so he has given me file. So Sudip, I will come back to you. After the class, I will check your code and I'll come back to you.
Okay, sir.
So let me just share this one. Okay. Saba, your Word file देखियो? Can you see my Word file?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Now
Yes,
let's
sir.
the thing that we cover in object-oriented programming. So you already know the features of object-oriented programming, है ना? You might have studied about data encapsulation. Might have studied about inheritance, polymorphism, and data abstraction. Okay. अब यसभित्र पनि के छ भन्दाखेरि data encapsulation भित्र पनि we have something called classes and objects, methods and property, have access modifiers, you have getter and setter, get and set methods. These are the things that we'll be discussing in the data encapsulation. So inheritance, we won't be doing a lot of things with inheritance. We'll be doing one simple program. The polymorphism, already you know there are two cases of polymorphism. One is a function overloading, another is overloading. So operator overloading we won't be using a lot, so that I'll be covering a very basic stuff in the operator overloading. Then you have a data abstraction technique in which you will be discussing about how to implement the data abstraction in your project. So त्यसपछि also we'll be talking about the interfaces. We'll be talking about abstract class. We'll talk about what you say lyrics. We'll also talk about delegates. Okay, so we'll talk about these things additional in OOP. And once you have the clear understanding of this, then you can understand design patterns. Then we can understand design pattern. There are many types of design pattern. We'll try to cover some of them design patterns in the object-oriented programming, everyone. So now what to do? Yes, and finally, once I finish this object-oriented programming, so once I finish object-oriented programming, once OOP is done, we'll do one project. Implementing OOP. Will that work, everyone? Do you want to do a project, or you want to just finish this topic and then you want to quit it?
Project sir.
Yeah, if you want to do project, then it's a very good idea that once the OOP is done, we'll do one project, real project, industrial project, and then that will be our first project. And then again, then we'll be getting into a design patterns. Let's say before, and then again ASP.NET Forms, again one more project, and then MVC and one more project. So this is how our curriculum will move on. Okay. So these are the things actually I do not want to discuss about this today. We discuss certain if we need to repeat it tomorrow again. So I think it's better idea that we discuss about this thing tomorrow. भोलि गर्दा हुन्छ? Do you want me to start today?
भोलि गर्ने सर
भोलि गरौँ है. We'll start today. आज धेरै नै फंक्सन अब त 4 किसिमको फंक्सन. एक्चुअली मैले एक हप्ताको मैले एक दिनमै पढाएको थियो यो फंक्सन चाहिँ. हजुर हजुर. हेलो.
सक्यो हजुरकै आवाज.
मेरो आवाज आएन? So अब तपाईहरुसँग केही क्वेशन छ, केही डाउट छ, केही कन्फ्युजन छ भने प्लिज लेट मी नो.
सर हामीले ASP.NET मा हामीले प्रोजेक्ट गर्ने हैन?
यस. ASP.NET मा हामी प्रोजेक्ट गर्छौं.
सर
हजुर.
ज्याङ्गोमा पनि हल्का गाइड गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ?
ज्याङ्गो मैले युज त गरेको छैन हैन, बट आई क्यान गाइड यु. चाहियो भने म आई क्यान हेल्प यु विथ ज्याङ्गो.
सर अनि त्यो ज्याङ्गोको लागि चाहिँ आफ्टर हाम्रो क्लास सकिसकेपछि हो कि क्लास हुँदै गर्ने हो?
अनि यस्तो गरौँ, त्यसको लागि तपाईहरु इन्ट्रेस्टेड हुनुहुन्छ भने सेपरेट एउटा सेसन गरौँला अनि वी क्यान डिस्कस दैट इन्टु अ सेपरेट सेसन है. व्हाई टु डिस्टर्ब दिस क्लास?
Awesome.
Okay, you can have a separate session. I won't be having let's say very difficult time. अब केही दिन पछि म फ्री भएपछि I can arrange a separate session if you need a Django and all. Okay? So त्यसको लागि Python को knowledge चाहिन्छ. I hope are you done with Python? Python को idea छ?
बेसिक छ सरलाई मलाई
छ सर अलिअलि छ.
अलिअलि छ है. Because Python you need to have a concept for Python. Python मा पनि I think के गर्नु भएको छ? NumPy, Pandas.
नम्पाइहरुसँग त पुगेको छैन
है. बेसिक मात्र भने चाहिँ त्यो बेसिक टपल्सहरु, डाटा टाइप्सहरु हैन, for loopहरु, for eachहरु हैन त्यस्तो. ओके. केही छैन, नो प्रब्लम. केही प्रब्लम भएन. We'll do that, no issues. तपाईहरु इन्ट्रेस्टेड हुनुहुन्छ भने I can have one session for Django and everything. I can help you in that. If you really want it, then I can also tell you about machine learning.
सर यसलाई अलि चाँडै गरौँ न, कहिले गर्नुहुन्छ हजुरले?
के गरौँ? चाँडै गरौँ?
चाँडै गरौँ.
पाइथन कन्टिन्यू गर्न मिल्दैन?
हजुर.
पाइथन नै को ठाउँमा .NET को ठाउँमा
पाइथनमै नगरौँ किनकि पाइथनमा चाहिँ अब हाम्रो यो एडभान्स प्रोग्रामिङमा खास के छ भन्दाखेरि तपाईको फ्रेमवर्क युज गर्नुपर्छ कि त्यो युज गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. त्यसकारण चाहिँ पाइथन भन्दा पनि दिस इज मोर बेटर. .NET इज मोर बेटर.
सर हाम्रो पाइथनमा पनि ज्याङ्गोमा पनि एमभिटी मोडल त युज गर्न मिल्छ नि मिल्न त?
हैन, तर पाइथन चाहिँ बेसिकली कहाँ युज हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि तपाईको मेसिन लर्निङ अथवा तपाईको चाहिँ आर्टिफिशियल इन्टेलिजेन्स त्यसको बढी राम्रो छ कि त्यसको बढी एरिया भनेको चाहिँ इट्स अल मेसिन लर्निङ आर्टिफिशियल इन्टेलिजेन्स तिर चाहिँ द्याट इज भेरी बेस्ट हैन. तर तपाई यदि इन्डस्ट्रियल एप्लिकेसन तिर जानुहुन्छ भने Either .NET or Java is the best. Okay, so Django तपाईको एकदमै Django युज गरेर तपाईको एप्लिकेसन बनाएको चाहिँ एकदम कम छ कि जस्तो कि अब त्यो कुन केसमा युज हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि